Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Lee Osler. I am a dentist in Washington State and one of your hosts here for the Redox 5. I'm joined tonight with our co-hosts Jim and Ann Glenn from San Antonio, Texas. Give them a shout out there. And tonight we have we'll excuse Maureen again. She's going to take a few weeks off this summer, but we'll miss her. But we have with us tonight Dr. Dick Walker and Nancy Walker from Spokane, Washington. These are some of our crowd favorites who bring an element of expertise and style into the discussion. So we're really glad to have them with us tonight. There's going to be many people watching tonight who are new, so let's start with a disclaimer. We will be discussing a company tonight called ASEA Global. For those of you new to understanding this, please know that this is a supplement. It's a cellular health company that produces a supplement that makes our cells healthy. And as such, we do not make claims for diagnosing, treating, or curing any medical disease or disorder. And we will stay in compliance with that tonight in our discussion. So as I said, our guest tonight is Dr. Dick Walker and Nancy Walker from Spokane. And I'd like to have you begin just kind of right at the start here with your story of how you got into ASEA. And then from there, and both of you can speak to that because I know you kind of tag teamed a little bit there in the early going. But I'd like you to tell your story each, and then we go from there. We can start talking about what is Redox.
If you don't mind, real quick, Dick and Nancy, can you kind of share, Dick, your background, Nancy, your background, again, for those people that aren't aware of who you are, and again, what your specialty is, please?
Sure. I guess I'll start. My background, I'm a physician. I've been a physician for many years. My specialties were internal medicine and emergency medicine, but on the side, I also had a number of people that I advised about nutrition and alternative health issues, especially people who just weren't responding and doing well with traditional medical management, because I ended up, for one reason or another, being pretty open-minded. And I think part of that was being an ER doc, because I was always looking for new solutions, because in the ER, you frequently end up with people who are sort of at the end of their rope. They've tried everything, and in the middle of the night, they're feeling miserable. So they end up in the ER looking for solutions. And, they've tried everything already. And so it was nice to have some other things that I could suggest to them. Got in trouble once in a while suggesting non-medical stuff, but I didn't care too much. I thought it was the best thing to do. And I never really got into a lot of trouble, only with a few of my colleagues who were straight down the line Western medicine and didn't believe in vitamins and that kind of stuff. And so, so Nancy and I both were really nutritionally aware. We were doing a lot of nutritional products because when I first discovered Redox, I was like 64, turned to 65. I'm the kind of guy who I'm an adrenaline junkie. I climb mountains all over the world. I've climbed Everest and McKinley and Aconcagua and some other places you probably never heard of. And yet in my mid 60s, my body was starting to tell me that, gee, you may not be able to continue doing that kind of stuff. I had an energy deficit. I had an endurance deficit. And that was unusual for me because I'm the kind of guy that even when I was working 50 hours a week, I was also working out a couple times a day and was always looking for another expedition or something, something vigorous to do. Got offered to be on a ride that was going to be the first ride across Russia. If you look at Russia, it's 7 time zones. It would have been a very long bicycle ride. I was crazy enough to say, yeah, maybe let me think about it. And then a couple of weeks later, I got invited to be the physician on an Everest expedition. And I quickly changed my mind about that bicycle ride. My behind kept saying, I don't know, Walker, if you want to sit on a bicycle seat for that long, out in the middle of nowhere, And so anyway, so I was that kind of person. I was energetic. I liked to do stuff, and my body was starting to rebel. It wasn't bouncing back from injuries and major climbs. It would take me much longer before I'd recover. And so I was looking, and I was just looking in the science for what might help me, and I started to see some references to this new science of redox. That was a couple of years before I ever heard of ASEA, and so I kind of kept that in mind, and then a friend of mine, many of you know him, Jerry White. He was a practicing research physical therapist at the time. And we knew each other through some other ventures. And he said, have you ever heard of redox signaling? And I said, yeah. And he said, there's a little company down in Salt Lake that has a supplement that supposedly is redox signaling molecules. And I said, well, I've never heard of that. In fact, everything I've read said nobody has that. And so, shortly thereafter, we flew down to Salt Lake City and met with Burtis Norton, met with the science team. They did indeed have something that appeared to be redox signaling molecules. And it was hard to categorize that. We call it a supplement, and yet it's not on any list of essential vitamins or minerals. It's really in a category of its own. It's a bioreplenishment, unusual product that serves as a foundation for cellular health. But it sounded intriguing to me. And so both Nancy and I started taking it. I was just looking for increased endurance. Nancy had some challenges that she can speak to. And I noticed that improvement in endurance. I was really getting back that sort of vim and vigor and recovery that I was looking for. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Other people ought to hear about it. And then I started to go to meetings, and I would hear people stand up, tell their story. And it was like, I would always buttonhole them out in the hallway after the meeting to question them, because some of it I just didn't, quite frankly, I just didn't believe it. But after talking to these people, looking them in the eye and realizing that this really was doing some amazing things, caught my attention. And so after using the product for a year or so, I decided to become an ASEA business builder. And Nancy was too busy at the time. She had her own store. And again, she can speak to that. But I didn't want to wait. And I started talking to people I knew who could use this product. And lo and behold, many of them had great experiences. And before I knew it, Jerry White called me up and he said, hey, you've got a bunch of money sitting in this wallet thing or something. I didn't even know about the wallet or the bank account, and so I turned that over to Nancy. That got her attention, and
you still don't know about the smart wallet.
Yeah, I still don't do anything with it.
It just shows up.
Yeah, when Nancy says you're
Be nice, Nancy.
Yeah, when Nancy said you're going to do something else on top of 50 or 60 hours a week in the hospital and all these adventures that you go on, and I said, yeah, and you can pay attention to the smart wallet. So that was a trade-off. But anyway, that was the beginning for us. I was 64 going on 65. It was 2012, I believe. ASEA was pretty new, only been around for a couple of years, small. So we were in close to the beginning of this adventure, this redox adventure that we call ASEA. And it's been a great one. So I love the products. I love all the new products. We can talk about them as we go through the evening.
Yeah. Hey, Dick, real quick, you said something, and I want people to catch it because I don't think many times they do. And maybe Lee, maybe you want to pop in on this, but a new category. When was the last time we had a new category of anything come out that no one knew anything about? Can you maybe dive into that a little bit, both you and Lee?
Yeah, not really.
That's huge.
Yeah, not in my lifetime. We've seen the realization that a bunch of plant-based phytonutrients, phytoceuticals, or what do you want to call them? We've realized that there are things in plants that help certain aspects of our health, but we've never really had a new category. And redox doesn't fit any of the traditional categories. It's not a vitamin. It's not a mineral. It doesn't fit nicely into any category like that. It's not a hormone, and yet it's a bioreplenishment. And so it really is a standalone, not just a standalone product. It's a standalone category of supplementation, if you want to put it that way. And there's really, ASEA is by far the leader in that. Nobody else has redox signaling molecules even to this date, and probably won't for a long time, because ASEA has pretty well figured out the only way to make them and stabilize them. And so it is a big deal, because it's, if you look up the essential nutrients, you're not going to find redox signaling on that list. So it's not traditionally a nutrient, it's something different.
Yeah.
Was that a little bit of a head scratcher for you? Because again, if you just look at the bottle, it just says it's sodium chloride and water. How did you deal with that? Again, both you and Lee.
Well, mostly I dealt with it, was looking at what limited science there was at the time, and realizing that the experiences that people were having were very real, that they weren't placebo, that this was indeed a new category, and it was doing some things that nothing else did. And so it was a process. I didn't realize that at first, so I was a little bit skeptical in terms of recommending it to people that were sick. But when people are sick and they've tried everything else, they're oftentimes willing to try anything that has the potential to help them. And I would always tell them, I don't know what this is going to do for you. I've seen it do some amazing things. I've heard about it doing some amazing things. It's certainly 100% safe. You don't have to worry about it doing you any harm, unlike a lot of the medications that we might prescribe as physicians. But so it was a process of learning to trust what the technology was and could do. And alongside of that was an explosion of information about redox, about what it was, what it could do, how important it was to cellular health. And so ASEA was at the beginning of that. I mean, ASEA stumbled into this. ASEA didn't set out to make a redox signaling molecule product. This came pretty much fully developed, except for stabilizing it.
And wouldn't you say you found all this info that you found in the anti-aging literature?
Well, yeah,
It wasn't in the regular medical, medical journals as such, but it was in the anti-aging
No, it was in
stuff that you were
PubMed and anti-aging, cellular health, and a lot of it. I knew a lot about antioxidants, and this really seemed to be the next evolution beyond antioxidants, because you could only take things so far with antioxidant supplements, and this seemed to be the next step above and beyond that.
You mentioned something. Again, Lee, the published studies. Why aren't there more of those on this, Lee?
Well, let me just kind of go back and echo what Dr. Dick said. And this goes back to the category. It goes to the next evolution. And it goes to really, I think we'll get into this later, as to why we are marketing it the way we're marketing it. Because, if this was just a vitamin D or, an herb like echinacea or wormwood or something, if we were a company that was reinventing them, to come out with a line of products, we wouldn't be saying very many things different than any other company could or would say about it. I mean, how many ways can you spin, a vitamin in terms of a marketing thing? And the thing that's so unique about this new category idea, and with this not being a nutrition concept, this goes more upstream, or even you could say more foundational. It's what makes all of that nutrition work. These are the marching orders, of the cell. These are the rules with which the cell works. That's what redox signaling, cellular biological level means. Is this is what spins a cell up and makes it function. And so this whole idea of a new category, we could probably spend 5 hours just talking about what that really means in the context of new science. But that's what makes this so exciting for people that understand this, that are in the know about this. It's like there's no competition. Nobody else has anything like this that equals it, even though some of those other things like herbs and so forth, and again, we'll talk about them later, are still, we call it redox active. They play on the same landscape, but they don't drive the show like redox signaling does.
Right. And if I can add one thing, I think, we didn't know it was a new category, especially me, but I remember when Jerry White came over to talk to us and tell us about it, we were nice. Dick was all excited. I was just plain tired because I wasn't well. I listened to him because I was always looking for something to help me feel better. And then I let him, he was time to go. I let him out the door. And as soon as I shut the door, Dick looked at me and he said, one of us is going to have to fly down to Salt Lake and see if this thing is real. Because it could just be something made in someone's garage. And so
it was only a year beyond that stage, I think. When
you
Right.
were picking the vibes. But I said, well, it's not going to be me, because I'm not a scientist, and plus I have too much to do. And so then it was harder for him because he had to take time off work, get somebody to cover his shifts, all that. But when he went down there and met with the team of scientists, he understood all that. And he came home very excited.
Well, I understood some of it anyway. I think Lee may know who to credit this quote to. Life is nothing more than an electron looking for a place to rest.
Oh, yeah.
Redox is all about electrons, losing or gaining electrons. And that is about as foundational as you can get to life and living things. And that's the ballpark that redox signaling plays in. It is that foundational. Like Lee said, you can be on all the best, you can be eating the best diet, organic, pure, and supplementing with really high quality nutritional supplements. But if you don't have your redox cellular house in order, you're not going to get the benefits that you're looking for, because it takes redox signaling molecules in a healthy redox cellular environment to make all this stuff work. And it's very complex. I tell people, health is like a 20,000 piece, puzzle. And if you're missing one or two pieces, if they're important, you're still not going to be healthy. And one of the big category of pieces that most people are missing is redox.
Yeah. I had a quick comment. Lee, you want to go or you want me to go?
Go
Let me
ahead.
go.
Okay.
Okay. So when you were at Utah and you were leaving the building, and here you saw that what was white and blue bottle, there's no Renew, there's no Tyrant Lab studies. When you obviously you saw Nancy first, but when you saw people, the public, maybe a patient, maybe a good friend, how did you describe what you just came across? What kind is your one-liner that kind of got the conversation going? Because again, we didn't have as much as we have today to, the tools to allow us to explain it. Obviously you're a doctor, so that's in your favor, but what would you say? You're holding this blue bottle, it just arrived at your house, you're starting to drink it. Then how did you go about sharing it with the next?
I don't really think I tried to explain it at that time. I said, I've heard that this is doing wonderful things for people. I'm satisfied that it's 100% safe. It can't hurt you. You've already tried everything else. Nothing's really helping your condition. Why not give it a try? I think it might help you, based on what I've heard. And, I had enough credibility that a lot of people were willing to follow my suggestion and try the product. And fortunately, most of them had a good response. We didn't, I think I was one of the first ones that started pushing higher dosages because I started to notice that people didn't necessarily get the kind of result they wanted with 2 to 4 ounces. And I was already taking 8 ounces a day myself because I'm just that kind of a guy. If 2 ounces is good, 4 is better. If 4 is okay, then 8's probably even better than that. And especially when there was no maximum dose, there was no ceiling to what you could take. And I'm thinking if it's a little good, if a little is good, then more is probably better. And when I started recommending that people take more, I started to see a more consistent response in people. And I think that's just because many people need more help in the area of redox.
So, Lee, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to have this balanced out a little more now and flip it over to Nancy.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to do too.
Yeah.
Side of the
Good
story.
Good segue.
Well,
to
that
her.
segues into your story, Nancy, because actually you needed to take more
Yeah,
after a period of
That's
time.
what I was
So
thinking.
share your
Right.
story, please.
Right. Okay. Well, my background, I was a dental hygienist for 20 something years, worked in private practice. I taught clinical skills at Eastern Washington University. Then I retired because we started an alpaca ranch. We imported alpacas from South America, and we started a livestock business with an end product. We had alpacas. We bred and raised alpacas for 20 years. We ended up with a herd of 150
Wow.
alpacas, and I had a retail store. I was the first American alpaca breeder to go down to the mills in Peru and buy clothing. And then I also learned how to sort the fiber, and I had yarn from our animals. And so I was doing that. I had 2 stores, and I was the only one. I had an online store and a brick and mortar store, and I was the only employee.
Oh man.
I was busy. I did shot all the my models. You know, I had online. I had 3 different models, and I took all the photos and did all the advertising and merchandising and everything. So I was really busy. And I wasn't well. I was, you know, I just could get through every day. I was really foggy brained, disorganized. I had a lot to do, but it was hard to get everything done. I slept, you know, at least 10 hours a night, and I was kind of groggy all the time. I hurt all the time. I just didn't feel well.
How long were you dealing with that, Nancy? How long were you like that?
As near as I can figure out, I think 35 years or more.
She
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
like, wasn't really like that when we first got together. I noticed
Not
the
as
difference.
much.
I noticed the difference. We were out on a bicycle ride one day. We used to ride bikes a lot, you know, hundreds of miles a year. And we were riding by this farm field, and they were putting some kind of chemicals on, and there was dust blowing across the road. And I went blasting through that. Nancy came along behind me, and she started coughing because she's always had a kind of a respiratory asthmatic kind of thing. But then I noticed after that she started, her underlying symptoms and problems really started to accelerate. And I was worried because, you know, we tried this, that, and the other thing, nothing really helped until.
It was even when the kids were little, because I had picked them up from school and I couldn't make it all the way home, a couple miles without falling asleep, and I'd have to pull over in a parking lot. You know, they talk about it all the time. Just kind of a sleepwalking person.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
The muscle aches and stuff got worse.
Oh yeah, they got really worse. But anyway, I was always open for something alternative, because even though I'm married to a physician, I am not into medication. And so, you know, I was willing. Actually, I had tried ASEA before Dick went down to the corporate office, and it tasted so awful.
You tried about 2 sips.
Yeah, but it was, I can't even
But
explain
it was
how
putrid.
bad
Mhm,
it is.
mhm.
It was for me, and I thought, this cannot be good for me. And I said, here, you try it.
I had the same response, although in the back of my head, I'm thinking there must be something to say about this stuff, because people are talking about it and people are making money as a business. So there's got to be something to this yucky taste and stuff. Or how could you market this stuff if it wasn't doing something? I mean, if you had a placebo, you'd at least make it taste good, right?
Well,
True.
so I was drinking, you know, 4 ounces a day. And right away, I did get some response. I got energy. My foggy brain cleared up. I was focused and organized. I had big projects sitting around my house for years that I was able to get done.
Awesome.
But I still hurt
Yeah.
all the time, pretty bad. You know, anywhere you touch me would hurt. And so that's when Dr. Samuelson, who is no longer a consultant to our company, but he was at the time. And I said, you know, this stuff doesn't work for what I have. And he laughed and he said, it works for everything. And he said, you're just not drinking enough if it's not working. And I thought, ugh, I couldn't drink more, like I just was gagging on it. And so it is a different experience for everyone. But I was a good patient, and I did for I followed the rules, and he told me I had to drink 8 ounces twice a day. So I did. I thought I'm never going to be able to do it, but I did it, and I got well. And it seems like it happens overnight, but it's happening as soon as you start taking the first dose.
Right.
And I felt better. The weird thing is, after 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks, drinking 16 ounces, was it 16 ounces? Yeah, 16 ounces a day. A couple days there, I felt kind of fluish. I didn't feel good, but I woke up after like 2.5 weeks and I felt like a completely different person. Now, completely different person ever in my life. Like I was never flexible, ever. And I could never like wash my hair in the sink because I couldn't put my head down that far. Never, I was strong, but never flexible until then. And then
Yeah.
I was never able to do yoga class. I would sit there and cry. I'd try to do yoga, because it was all the rage. But it was so interesting. It was like my whole body was brand new.
Right.
And
That's amazing.
yeah. And
I just said, go ahead, Lee.
Nancy, could you drill into that, or maybe both of you could drill into that a little bit more about the fluish? There was what was going on? Explain that phenomena, because people will take that and go, "Oh, this is making me worse." What is that? And maybe describe that as one of the effects. Both of you go for it.
And then maybe the taste as well.
yeah, the taste was very like chlorine, even though I knew there was no chlorine in it. That's what it tasted like to me. And so I
But
felt
did it get better? Did the taste get better?
after I increased my dose
Okay.
and I woke up and felt like a new person, I had no taste at all, which
Okay.
was so interesting. But I trusted, you see, and this is how we talk about it's word of mouth marketing, because you hear it from someone you trust. I trusted Dick, I trusted Jerry, I trusted the science, and I trusted Dr. Samuelson. So I was very compliant, but I didn't feel good. I was, during that time when I took more of the product, I felt very tired, headachy. A couple days there, I laid down in the afternoon and I never napped. Even when I felt bad, I would just never napped because I had a lot to do. But this time I laid down and rested. And that was now I see when I look back, that was part of the turning point. That was my body had so much work to do. And I had so much oxidative stress on board that it was working to remedy that.
So yeah, Lee, you asked me to comment on that. I don't remember having that sort of a response early on. Although I'm the kind of person that might have just bulldozed right through it and not paid any attention to it. But a lot of people do. And, we kind of talk about that as being a detox, but detox means so many different things to different people. I think I describe that as an adjustment phase where, your body has been getting by with whatever redox molecules it could make in the mitochondria, but it certainly wasn't making enough. And then all of a sudden we go slam bam and we give it a whole bunch of redox molecules, and our cells say, whoo, whoopie-doo, what are we going to do with these things? And they start to work, and we sometimes don't feel real good because we've got a lot of things that need to be repaired. And I sort of equate that to like when you go to physical therapy, it doesn't feel good. Like right now, I'm fidgeting a little bit because I've had knee replacement. So my knee wants to straighten out once in a while. But when I go to physical therapy, it hurts. And the rest of that day, that knee doesn't like me for having done that. And yet every week, 3 times a week I do it. And every time I go, that knee is getting better. It's moving better. I've got better range of motion that I wouldn't have if I weren't, putting it through the paces like that. So I think it's a little bit like that. And your body is probably dumping a bunch of garbage it's been holding on to just because of the way these molecules work. But trust me, you'll get through that. For some people, it's really short. For some people, it may last a week or longer. But you've got to stay on the product in order to get through and get over that sort of hump to get on the other side. The product is working. When somebody calls me up and say, man, I don't feel very good, I'm saying, great, the product's working. Keep taking it.
Yeah, very good.
Lee, he's gonna.
Okay.
No, I was just going to have you extend that thought maybe just a little bit more about the length of time it takes to kind of work your way through your problems. I think Nancy was beginning to address that in her own experience. So you've got the experience there, and then you've got the brainchild sitting next to Nancy who can explain maybe the cellular basis of why that works. But we took years and years to get here, and we probably submitted ourselves to a lot of drugs, a lot of interventions, medically speaking, trying to get rid of symptoms or manage symptoms, or but usually nothing that we take medically speaking, and Dick, you can maybe verify this, really is addressed to curing a problem. It's more about managing it from a medical or interventive side. So maybe you could speak to this idea of sometimes it takes a little while, to kind of peel that onion, if you will, to get to the place where your cells really are functioning more cleanly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have a symptom, it wasn't uncommon for me to see a patient who had a symptom or a number of symptoms, and yet we would do a battery of tests, very expensive tests many times, and really not find anything abnormal on those tests. That doesn't mean that the patient wasn't sick, that the patient didn't have problems. It meant that the problems are at the cellular level, and we just don't have the technology to oftentimes figure that out. And I've come to the determination that in many cases, those are redox deficiencies, or better spoken, maybe redox imbalances. And we don't have a good test for that. We don't have a simple, easy way to send somebody to the lab, and the lab says, yeah, this person's deficient in redox molecules, prescribe that. We don't have that kind of a test yet. And yet many times that's the answer, because when we run tests on blood and that sort of thing, we're not getting the result on what's going on in the cell. We're getting some downstream things that are represented in the blood, but may or may not be telling us the whole story. And so redox is just such a new foundational technology, and the SIA is such a new product, even though we've been on the market now for 13 years. That's not very long, really. This is a young company with a technology that we're really still learning more and more about it every day. Also, I know we're talking like from Dick's medical perspective, but he and I were talking the other day about a SIA Redox and how it's a wellness product. And some people, I got a call from a gal, and she had a really bad problem that needed, medical intervention. And she was free of that problem. But then she said to me, she's been on Redox for several years. She said, this very serious problem she doesn't have now. But she said, my back still hurts. I just don't know if this is working. And people have a funny idea about using Redox to solve medical conditions. It happened to solve my problem, and it happens to solve lots of people's problems because it brings us into redox balance. But really, we should take the approach that we're drinking this for wellness. Right. Are you never going to have a backache? No, because we're humans and we use our bodies, but you're going to be able to be more well. Am I explaining what we talked about? Yeah, I think so. What I was getting at was that was that wellness is what cures our body. When we put things in balance, when we supply the ingredients that our cells need to be healthy, that's wellness. And when we get over significant issues, symptoms, whatever, by doing that, it's really the wellness, it's the overall picture that's improving. That's why ASEA Redox is an incredible product, but it's not the be all and end all of health. It's a very important piece of it, but there are other things that our body needs as well. We need exercise. You can't be a couch potato, chug a bottle of Redox a day and say, I'm healthy, man. I don't need that. I don't need to go out and stress my body, sweat and get stinky and get tired. Yes, you do. And so there are a number of other things that we need if we really want total cellular health, or as close as we can get to that. If we want to live longer and be productive and enjoy life, we need to pay attention to a lot of things, not just Redox, but Redox is a hugely important part of that.
Exactly. I just had a couple of things I was thinking with Nancy's story. We know that our redox signaling does start to diminish after puberty. So year after year, decade after decade, things show up, and inflammation is one of those things that as you're aging, you inevitably, like you mentioned, 4 ounces while I was still hurting, you upped it, then, that started to go down. So people need to realize that, there are things because of your lifestyle, maybe your job is very stressful. You led a life of hairy, scary. Well, the body was probably crying for, I need my redox, but you didn't know that. And then of course you started allowing the communication. But I was also thinking about the balancing phase where some people, flu-like or headache or so on. Some of that can be lessened, correct me if I'm wrong, by, for one, drinking, half your body weight. You need to have enough water to push. In body, half of your body weight in ounces. Yes. And so that will push out the toxins. And then maybe somebody who's sensitive, maybe they should split their dose. If they're, 8 or 12, maybe they should split that over the course of the whole day. That way they have that gradual buildup. Dr. Walker, do you agree with that kind of a slow in for some people, so their balance is not so bad during the first few days or week?
I think it's definitely better to take your Redox, your ASEA Redox throughout the day, not take it all at once in the morning. I take my first dose in the morning, but then I usually take 2 or sometimes 3 other doses during the day, especially when I'm, getting through this knee surgery. But the molecules only last in your body for about 3.5, 4 hours. And so if you want to have continual improvement or continual exposure in your cells to the extra molecules, you can't just take it once a day. But so taking it more often than once a day is certainly better. Taking more is usually a pretty good answer to when somebody says this isn't working, more or longer, because for some people it takes 3 or 4 months before they notice the changes that are happening in their body. The changes are happening from the first dose, like Nancy mentioned, but sometimes it takes a while. I mean, if you've had a problem for 20 or 30 years, that means you've got a lot of cells that are crying out for help. And they're not all going to get better in the first week or two. It's going to take time.
Yep. Right.
Regarding that, hey, doc, I'm healthy. I don't need this. How long does it take for a dis-ease or something going on in your body before a symptom shows up?
Well, it takes quite a while sometimes. A lot of times, if you take blood sugar issues, there are a lot of people with what we call pre-blood sugar problems. You can see in the lab test, they feel perfectly normal. But if they don't do something about that over, maybe 10, 15 years later, they're going to suffer the consequences of not doing anything about it, or maybe sooner. And so the body gets sick slowly, and it takes a while for it to get better for most issues. You don't get cardiovascular disease overnight. You don't go from being perfectly healthy and then having a heart attack the next day. Some people think it works that way because they didn't ever think they were sick. And then they're left in my ER having a heart attack. And I say, you may not have had any symptoms for a while, but you've had this disease for a significant amount of time.
Good. So this is a good time to segue to prevention then. Nancy, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking, can you quantify like a blood test? How sick is someone when they get a result on a blood test? Like what percentage of their body is sick?
You
Can
really,
you
you can't
say
really,
that?
you can't really
Okay.
quantify that. It's usually a yes, you have it, or no, you
Yeah.
don't. But I will say that by the time you have a biomarker, a blood test that's indicating a condition, you've had that condition for some time. It's just not
overnight.
detectable until it reaches a certain level, which means that the damage to those cells that are involved has to reach a certain point to where they're not doing their job. They're not detoxifying like a liver cell or a kidney
Yeah.
cell. It takes a while for you to get that symptom. Well, it's going to take a while for that symptom to go away as you correct the redox environment, feed your cells the nutrition that it needs, hydrate it, and then wonderful things can happen. But like I said, it's complicated. Your health is complicated, and the older we get, the more attention you have to pay to it if you want to stay healthy.
Well,
Exactly.
Here's something that, though, is very concerning. Why are younger people having more serious health issues than maybe we've ever seen before? Whether it be learning disability issues, whether it be, obesity in children, which I think we know why that happens, but yet we're seeing children that are getting bad cells. And also, if you don't mind, Lee, why do we do code talk? Why don't we name these diseases? Some people may think that we're avoiding that, or maybe Dr. Walker, why are we not naming the stuff?
Well, ASEA is not a drug, so it's not approved to treat a particular disease, and that is not by accident. That's by design. ASEA could certainly have taken this technology to the FDA and applied for approval to treat a specific disease. Burgess Norton decided not to do that, and he decided not to do that because early on he realized that this technology had the potential for people to drink it and for their bodies to use this to take care of a number of different kinds of health challenges. If you took it and had it approved for, say, cardiovascular disease or diabetes or lung problems or whatever, then it would have been prescribed for that problem. And it would have taken years before it ever got used, what we call off-label for other things, because doctors would have thought, well, this is a drug for this kind of thing. Why would I use it for something else? That's not the way drugs work. And so I think it's a stroke of genius that this company realized that if they had done that, they would have limited the potential of this product to help the human race, because it would have been buttonholed as a treatment for a particular disease, not as a supplement, a nutrient that can give your body a tool that it can use to benefit a number of different conditions, which is a far more potent and far better use of this technology.
Yeah, I go to where I think it's the largest blessing we could ever experience as a human race, and that's why we have to share it with everyone. I just want to throw out there real quick, for those that want a deeper dive, Dr. Walker and Dr. Osler have done that. They have the recording up. It is in redoxmatters.com. Lee, where exactly is that recording right now that people could go watch after this?
Well, there's a videos channel, and there's just a science section in that website. We also have information on the Discover Redox website in the science section, or they can drill in and learn more about that.
Okay.
And if
I was going to go ahead.
If people are going to convention, there's going to be a special section by the Medical Professional Board, which will be a not a deep dive into the science, but a dive that people will get a lot of information from and get a better understanding so that they can explain this to other people.
Anne's going to say something in a second, but I want to say something real quick, because this is kind of where I tell people, if they know the movie The Chronicles of Narnia, where these kids go through the closet and they open the door and it's a whole new world, because that's where we are right now. Yeah, but doctor, both of you maybe, and Nancy, but it seems like, in Nancy, I think you said it, that when Dr. Samuelson earlier on, and we were blessed to be able to meet him as well, and he was an absolute genius. But he says if it involves a cell, it'll work. That sounds so Star Trek-y. It sounds so futuristic that a lot of people go, oh man, come on, that's snake oil. That's just not possible to believe. Dick, how did you deal with that, and/or Dr. Osler?
Well, that slowed me down by probably a couple of years, because I used to tell people, if somebody comes to you and says they've got a thing that will take care of everything, or XYZ and some other things too, turn around and run the other way, because that doesn't exist. That was before the scientific community discovered redox and redox deficiency issues, because this is so foundational that it does help all kinds. It helps your body to deal with all kinds of issues, because your body is programmed to fix and repair itself. Literally over, hundreds of thousands of years, the body has developed an ability to fix and repair many, many problems, many, many challenges. But the problem is we don't give it the tools that it needs. And the other thing, Nancy and I were talking about this too, we didn't used to live to 80 years old. The human race isn't used to having a lifespan that we have. And yet, because of better nutrition, because we're not working as hard, for a number of reasons, the average lifespan is extending out there. That puts an onus on us to take care of the vehicle that we live in. Because if you knew you were going to live to be 100, I suspect you'd change the oil more often. You would have taken a lot better care of yourself. It's like if somebody said you get one car and only one car, you would probably service it more frequently and put better quality oil and take a lot better care of it. Well, guess what? We might live to be 100. What do you want those last 20 years of your life to be like? If you take care of the body, you're going to have a great, last quarter of your lifespan. If you don't, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to be functional. You're going to be spending a lot of money. You spend a lot of money on disease care. Nancy and I have decided to spend our health money on prevention and wellness and things like ASEA, because that way we can enjoy the benefits, as opposed to paying an insurance company so that they can pay the hospital and the doctor to take care of it when we get sick.
That's it. Yeah, I'm all about the proactive.
Yeah, Jim, in answer to your question, from my point of view, I go back to that foundational upstream concept, is that this does sound almost too good to be true if you don't understand the science. Once you understand the science, and that's why I keep harping on this, and people say, oh, you don't need that so much. And I was like, I beg to differ. Somebody at least has to understand and be able to explain it at this level, because this is the way we were designed. That was what Dick said earlier. This is the way the cells are put together. They're designed to respond to stress in our environment. The problems that we have in life are almost universally, and I realize there's some exceptions, we will call them genetic exceptions and so forth, but almost universally they come from oxidative stress. When there's the stress is, if you kind of simplify this and say that the cell knows it's either happy or sad. It's like it's one way or the other. You're either in balance, you have homeostasis, or you're not. And that's this electron looking for a place to rest concept. If it's not happy, meaning it's unstable, or it's destabilized or whatever, then the body is perfectly designed to respond to that if it has the right things going on for it. And those right things are what we call redox, or reduction oxidation molecules, that are manufactured natively, naturally in the cell, to be able to tell the DNA when to turn on and when to turn off its defenses. And the problem is that when we don't have enough of those, or they are dysfunctional, we can't tell the DNA when to turn on and when to repair itself. It just does it haphazardly, and we age faster. This is why we can induce, or we can hack, if you will, we can biohack the cell to turn on things like stem cells. We can actually create new cells. We can repair the DNA. We can clean the cell up from the oxidants that are driving us, nuts. And when we get the job done, it turns off. It's a responsive on and off switch that makes us more resilient to the stresses in the environment. When you understand that science, this makes perfect sense, because this is why we can turn on or awaken the inner doctor.
Exactly.
It really
Redox
does.
lifestyle.
You can't avoid stress. And there are a number of, people think stress, that's psychological stress. That's one kind of stress, and that equates to physical stress through redox and through oxidative stress. There's environmental stress, there's food stress, there's all kinds of different stressors that our body has to adapt to. And it does have the mechanisms to do that, as long as you give the body the tools that it needs to respond. The response is built in. It's built into our genetics. It's built into our cellular physiology and day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute, the way the cell works. And it's constantly out of balance, back into balance, out of balance the other direction, back into balance. And it's that adaptive response. Health is that process of going a little too far this way, coming back, going a little too far that way, around a set point. And it's that adaptive response, that homeostasis, if you will, that really establishes health. It's not a straight down the road, never be challenged. Your body needs that challenge actually to be healthy, and that's part of what Redox does as well. So
I want to just punctuate what he just said. What Dr. Walker just said, it is a health sermon. It's like if you're going to go to church and hear the perfect sermon, you just went to the health nutrition seminar and heard the perfect sermon. Because that whole concept is, it's not that we want to stay or be without stress. It's that we use stress in the right ways to be able to improve our adaptability to the stress. It's our ability to respond to it that makes us healthy. That's what lifestyle is all about. When you talked earlier about, sitting on the couch and not exercising, but you drink your nutrition drink or whatever, well, you might be better than not drinking anything while you sit on the couch. But the point is, this is lifestyle. And the reason why lifestyle makes us healthy is that it stresses us in incremental amounts periodically. And we learn cellularly, this physiological thing, we learn to respond to it, because that's what turns on and awakens our defense mechanisms. And ASEA redox signaling molecules expertly and directly do it. They don't have to work through secondary or third level metabolites to get the job done. They do it directly, and that's what makes this such a eureka moment.
Right.
Wow.
And
Well,
there's two excellent examples of that I can think of. Number one is weight training or physical activity. You may be sore for a day or two afterwards. That's the challenge, because your muscles were stretched, your muscles had micro injuries and that sort of thing. But as it repairs, it comes back stronger. And as a mountain climber and mountaineer, I had to understand the adaptability of the human body, because if I were to leave Spokane, Washington, which is at about 2,000 feet, and fly directly to base camp on Mount Everest, which is at 18 to 20,000 feet, got out of the helicopter, I would have dropped dead unless I had an oxygen tank on. But since I acclimatized and slowly hiked up to base camp and allowed my blood vessels and my heart and everything to adapt, I could walk into base camp at 18,000 feet, dance a jig, do whatever, and be perfectly fine, because that my body at 2,000 feet was a different body than my body at 18,000 feet. And it all happened automatically because I gave it the chance to adapt.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Uh,
I was, oh,
Go ahead.
well, I was just going to comment that, thank God we do have it as a supplement. It's available to people. And if they would read the back of the bottle, they would see the important areas that this is working on. If they would look at their tracker that comes in their box, they can see week after week, well, it's working on this or that. That's not as bad. Obviously, if you work out, which I encourage, the molecules are going to allow you to go longer, stronger, faster. I mean, there's so many studies and stories. We've seen that. And then the gene study, I mean, to have the Torrent Labs, that validation, the 15 pathways they studied, I mean, that right there tells us we know it's going to continue to work on these areas. We just can't say how long, we can't say how much. But I know our time is running out. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to tip into
Well,
nutrition.
yeah, we got 5 minutes.
Or the new stuff.
So Nancy, can you real quick cover the facial care, and then Dick, if you don't mind hitting real quick on the nutrition, and then maybe Lee, if you want to touch on cell performance real quick.
Yeah, they all wrap together.
We have a reformulated skincare line. It's called Renew Advanced, and they ASEA partnered with University of Bath researchers. They studied old skin and young skin and figured out what was happening in old skin, and that's how they took that the results of that study, and that guided them in the selection of the ingredients that they put into our new line. It's affordable, it's ultra green and clean. It has already proven ingredients that are organic, ultra green, combined with Redox active ingredients. We were talking about that earlier. These Redox active ingredients specifically attach to skin cells to cause redox reactions inside the cell. That's what remakes our skin into young. It makes it react like young skin. It looks like young skin. It doesn't matter how old you are when you start out. Doesn't matter if you've never used anything on your skin but soap and water. It will transform your skin into younger skin. And now we have the help of the Volagen, or the collagen product that is plant-based, that helps our body create more collagen when it comes to skin, hair, and nails. And also we have a couple of specialty products. Redox serum, our old serum in the dark blue tube, is just amazing. It's packed full of redox signaling molecules that help with cellular communication to give you nicer, smoother skin.
So the VIA line, don't shortchange the VIA line. The really important things in what we call more standard nutrition, phytonutrients, that sort of thing. Number one is sourcing. Where does it come from? Is it pure? Is it clean? And ASEA is meticulous in its sourcing of the ingredients for source. Then they put it through a process that makes it highly bioavailable, because you can have the best supplement going into your mouth and into your gut, but if it's not absorbable, if it can't get to your cells, it's not going to do much. And ASEA's has a number of proprietary things that they do to make sure that those nutrients that are on the label actually get to your cells so that your cells can use them. So it's a very, very highly scientifically designed nutritional supplements, both the source, the Life Max. I call that the anti-aging vitamin that I take. And the biome. Your gut is a very much underappreciated part of your health, and if you don't pay attention to it, you're not going to be as healthy as you can be. And then certainly the omega products. So very, very good products. Put them on your auto ship, and use your LRP points to try them. But they are, I would never be without those nutritional products, because again, remember, this is a big puzzle and you don't want to have missing pieces. And there's a lot of important pieces in the VIA line.
And isn't it exciting to have the mask, Nancy? I mean, the only one in the world.
I forgot.
Clay bentonite. Yeah. And redox signaling and clay. I mean,
we have all these products powered by Redox are different than what anyone else has.
I love the mask.
And you can use it different
crazy.
ways. Use the whole mask on your face, your neck, your chest. You can use if you have a problem, you can use it on a spot there, and it's safe and it works. And it's just amazing.
And that problem spot can be anywhere, not just on your face. So
Yeah, I think
that
Sean, I
happened
think
to
Sean
me.
Burke did it and you did it.
Yeah, I did it.
Sean
Lee,
Burke
can
did-
you real
yeah.
quick cover the performance, or Dick or Lee?
Yeah, cell performance is one of the newer product lines that we have: Redox Mind, Redox Mood, Redox Energy. And this echoes back to Nancy's comment of these redox active metabolites that we acquire from herbs and vitamins and minerals that are out and about around us, but they're synergistically, or they're put together in a synergistic way so that they support in a redox active way all of the pathways that the cell and the mitochondria use to create energy, to facilitate the production of redox molecules, and to give us some specific effects that are related to mind, mood, and energy. We have some natural herbal processes. And again, this harkens back to the comment I made earlier. These are secondary metabolites that the body knows how to use. And when they're blended in a specific way, they have an enhanced synergistic ability to make these pathway genes work like they're supposed to.
And they're
Yes.
scientifically proven to do what they do. So
Yes.
Well, and you get rapid results, and that's what's really phenomenal about all three of those.
Well, and what's exciting with the new collagen, this is a support for our collagen, and it helps the collagen we already have for it to also stay well. I mean, our collagen is the nutrients put together to build your own, not marine, not animal. It's vegan, so we know it's safe. It's you're not going to have the upset stomach. You're going to see results quicker, and it's affordable.
So,
Shoot.
well, guys, Dr. Walker, Nancy, thank you. We're
Thanks
going to
for
see you
having us.
guys next week.
Yes.
We will be out of country, but we are not out of Redox 5. Dr. Osler will be here.
Go solo.
He has got a phenomenal guest. He's been on our
Okay.
show once before. Dr. Ed De La Rosas. You want to hear his story. You do not want to miss it. So please go and invite people to come back and join us, Dr. Osler and Dr. De La Reyes, next Friday. I'm not sure if you're going to have your other counterpart with you,
Ray.
Lee, Dr. Ray Dixon. I'm not sure if he'll be with you or not, but we will be back the week after. So guys, thank you so much. This recording will be up on redoxmatters.com within about an hour and a half. So with that, thank you guys.
Thanks,
Real
everybody.
pleasure.
So much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great weekend.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you Wednesday.